Hey everyone, Mr. Sugeno here. Welcome to part 2 of a 3-part series that I like to call Tips from the Pros. If you missed part 1 of this series, take a look in the description of this video. I'll leave a link there and you can definitely check it out. Each video I ask a different question to the pros in hopes of getting some insight, some good tips for beginners and experienced players alike. So last video I asked them what advice they would give to someone new to fighting games. This one is a little different. I asked, how do you train for fighting games or for a fighting game tournament? I thought it would be great if we can get some insider information into how pros train for tournaments. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video.
It really depends where you are. Obviously, you got to have your moves on lock, make sure your execution is good. Really what you want is like comfort in the character, but once you sort of have reached that next plateau where you're thinking about showing up to a real tournament, I think a great thing to do is watch your old matches and see if you can spot your own mistakes. Because that's, I think, one of the best ways that you could sort of, to succeed really at fighting games, you have to take yourself out of your own head and put yourself into the mind of the opponent. And I think when you look at yourself as just another player on the screen, without the stress of playing, you can spot a lot of mistakes that you're like, what was I thinking? I jump here all the time. And then that's what your opponents are picking up on, and that can clean up a lot of slop in your game quickly.
So whenever I come to an event, if I'm going to practice for it, what I'm going to try to do is look up my pool, find out what characters I have to fight against, and try to find high-level players that play that character so I can prepare the best that I can.
How do I train for a tournament? You know, being a TO now, it's kind of hard because most of the events I run, I'm not allowed to enter. But if I were still in my heyday or prime, just a lot of online play. Honestly, Street Fighter 4, I would come home after work and play 3-4 hours just to learn all the character moves and how to punish stuff and play. Having good friends around you to train with and just keep going back and forth. But now, you know, 2019, I watched a lot of videos. Like I entered Samurai Showdown. I watched as many videos as I could. So those are some of the ways I train, and then just play, practice, and then you kind of have to go to other tournaments before you go somewhere big like an Evo and learn through trial and error playing other people. So if it's like your first major event, it's really tough without a little bit of practice, but every match is a new learning process and a new game.
So my recommendation and any tip that if you are a new player, what I did basically is that I had Ludovic training me for this specific tournament, and we went over like what I was doing wrong and trying to optimize my gameplay. Like for example, now that I play Chun-Li, so like now that I have meter and I have like V-trigger and all that, now I have like a game plan and I have like some set plays that I know when to do it and how to do it. Before that, I would never in my life like go over my matches. Like I stream a lot also. I stream a lot, and like what really helped me is that I kept going over my stream, and like I watched the entire stream to like rewatch the matches that I lost, and like okay, what could I have done better at that situation? Like what was I losing to? What was my opponent doing on his wake up? Like either because in this game you need to make them play your game. So this game is pretty much based on wake up. So if you throw, if your opponent tags, now next time do not go for a throw, go for a shimmy.
Training for a fighting game or a fighting game tournament, a couple of things. One thing, the best thing to do is know your weakness, if that makes any sense. Knowing what you need to work on, where you give up advantages, like are your anti-airs good, is your matchup knowledge good? You have to have at least a general knowledge, and then like if you actually check the bracket, you could actually break down your training a little better. Obviously you don't have a lot of time because you're at the tournament, but if you see the bracket, like Evo puts up their bracket in advance, you can at least see who the biggest threats are in the bracket, learn the character matchups, certain things you should work on, so that's probably the best way. Watch your own matches, watch your losing matches.
So the first thing I do to train for a tournament, for a game, is I watch a lot of video footage. I watch a lot of top players to see what they do, and I actually check out the character they use to make sure it's the character I'm using too. So just for self-prep, I watch a lot of videos of top players using the character that I use. That's what I would recommend.
So when I train for a tournament, I would be a lot of watching videos from competitions worldwide. For Soul Calibur 6, especially from US and Japan, of course, because I have so many majors in US. And I go a lot of offline matches, so we organize sessions in offline in Paris mostly, and then we train with 10 to 20 people that play different kind of characters, that have different styles, and that would be very useful for training tournaments. Then I note a lot of things about my opponents and the characters that I would meet in the bracket if they announce the bracket in advance. And mostly being focused on the tournament means also being healthy, being comfortable with yourself, and being in good shape. So I don't only train on the games, I also do activities outside of the game because it's really important to think of something else sometimes and be out of the game, like doing music. I play to the piano and I go to sports a lot. I do boxing and fitness. So I like doing that because it helps me being a better person mentally. And I need that in tournament because even if you know all the matchups, it doesn't matter if you're weak, if you are in a weak state when you play a match in tournament. So I think all of this is really important to be good in tournament.
I take a look at all the matches that I recently won or lost. Let's say I go to rank, play 5 rounds, and try to pinpoint what exactly I did wrong. So basic example, maybe I just missed anti-airing. Then I'd focus on anti-airing. Like I would then practice in training mode the way to do a DP motion, for example, and go back to rank and do nothing but aim to anti-air everything. So when you work on one problem at a time, you then see yourself getting better, and that will inspire you to move on to the next step, and then the next step after that.
Given how much I've actually played, especially like in certain games, like I've spent so much time with it that I kind of know the players who I'm going to go up against. So one of the key things I always do to prepare is to watch their matches, see what their tendencies are, and start to analyze how I can use that to my advantage. Another way is if I've actually played them, whether I've won or lost against them, I will rewatch those matches and see things that I can pick up on, see things that they probably would have improved on, and just try and play a counter to what they expect of me, and also try and optimize my play against them. I think being able to be prepared for like situations that you're going to come up against and the players that you'll have to face is actually more important than optimizing your combos, optimizing your punishes. Execution you can practice anytime, but when you're coming up for a tournament, you have to be focused on the players you're going to be meeting in that tournament, because if you don't, you will actually get blindsided by something you're not prepared for.
Because my way of doing things, traveling the world and having to stay in different places, doesn't allow me to have like a proper schedule. It depends a lot of who I'm staying with, or if the person I'm staying with actually plays the same games. So depending on that, I do more training mode, or I can do more practice with actual like grinding matches, or depending on the person, we can also talk about the matches. I really like mostly doing that, like staying with someone that we can talk about the game, about what is going on and what's happening. For me, that's my best system to learn when I'm training.
How I train for tournaments, normally the weeks leading up to the tournaments, I like to really go in and lab a lot of matchups that give me trouble. Also, I like to check out the higher competition and who our top tier players are, and I go in and lab stuff against their characters and then study their gameplay. So that way, when I go in, and in case I do have to fight them, I'm ready and prepared for anything. But most of the time, I try to make sure I'm also not burning myself out with playing too much, so I don't overdo it. And I also like to just eat well and sleep well and just keep a positive mental state leading up to a tournament, because if I'm not in a good mental state, then I'm not going to do well.
So I train for tournaments and fighting games like this by grabbing somebody who's local and running long sets. The most recent experience that I had with that was literally running 150 games back to back to back to back. The more games you play in a local scenario, the better you'll be at a tournament, because you're not playing online. This isn't, you're not a ranked warrior here. You're actually playing against human beings. So find a human being that you, one, enjoy playing with, possibly plays a character that you're not very good against, and play really long sets. That's the best way to prepare for a tournament.
So the way I train is I boot up SF5 on my computer, and I practice my motions on the player 1 side and the player 2 side. Reason being, years ago when I got into fighting games, Gutex he put up a video on Cross Counter talking about how you should do practice drills of doing 10 fireballs on the player 1 side, 10 fireballs on the player 2 side, because you want to consistently do a quarter circle forward and a quarter circle back. You know, like players like me, I play better on the player 1 side. So I have to practice my player 2 side motions.
Basically what I do is I narrow down the character that I would like to play at the tournament and a good counter pick for that character to help fill some of the tools that the original character might be lacking. I'll go into the training room and I'll practice my bread and butter combos and safe jumps and a couple of gimmicky things. When I have those under control, I'll go online and practice against friends in a closed room, and then I'll play ranked matches. Another good way too to help get ready for a tournament is hit up your local scene. You can get the feel of playing against people face to face, and it's different when you're sitting right next to somebody and they're beside you, and then you get that real competitive feeling. It helps with nerves a little bit too.
So to train for a tournament, I tend to just play a lot of matches. I try to get my timing down in terms of offline versus online, because I play a lot of online matches. Other than that, yeah, it's just trying to make sure I have the tech skill down and rely on the matchup knowledge I gain from online play. And it seems to work fine.
The way that I train for a tournament is basically I try to play as many matches as you can, just because now in the new games, they don't have the training mode. It's not really that useful. I actually think that matches are more important now. But back in the day, I used to play like 10 hours. So in training mode, I used to do combos all the time and stuff like that. So execution was very important back in the day. Now it's not. So playing matches, I think, is the most important thing.
The most important thing when you're training for a tournament is what I think a lot of people lose track of when you're in the fighting game industry or any type of esports, is just remain to have fun with what you're playing with. If you're training to win and you're training and you lose sight of having fun with the game, you're not going to perform the best that you can if you're just enjoying the game. And I think keeping that mindset where you're having fun playing no matter what the outcome's going to be is the most important thing.
Alright, so that about does it for this video. Hopefully you found some of those answers helpful. I want to give a big thanks to all the pros who took the time to answer questions, and I'm going to leave a link to each of their social media pages in the description below. You can take a look there if you want to look them up further. Part 3 of this series will be asking the pros a different question yet again, so also stay tuned for that. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Thank you everyone. Take care.